All right, let's go over the W sit position. So the W sit is an internal hip rotation stretch. And before I get into anything regarding the setup, the position, etc., I want to prefix this video by saying make sure that you have some elevated support on standby. Yoga blocks work great for this application, but you can also use a foam roller or really anything that's going to help support some of the load of your body weight. And the reason being because if you do not have extremely high levels of internal hip rotation strength and movement capacity, then you're going to need the support, and it's going to be your best friend with this position. So the reason they call it the W sit is because at a higher level, when we have good hip rotation, internal hip rotation, the position will actually mimic a W if you really look at it. So the feet and the hips would be the peaks of the W, and my knees would be the bottom. So if you can visualize that, that's why it's called the W sit. The more you know, right? So for a more practical application for most people, where you're going to be at, you're going to want the knees a little more spread apart and not pulled in. So it's not going to mimic the W position quite so much, but as long as our feet are outside of our hips, we are going to be training internal hip rotation. And the more wide we make our knees, the easier this will become. And the more we bring the knees in, the more hip rotation is required to assume that position. Now, if you're feeling any sort of sensation in the knees, pain, tightness, tension, or just some pressure there, we are going to want to back off the range and spread your knees a little further apart until you find a position that allows you to isolate that stretch sensation deep in the hips. Okay, the reason why we will be feeling it in the knees is because your knees are compensating for a lack of rotation in the hips, and as a result, there's going to be excessive torque going on at the knees, and that is not what we want. So rather than trying to force yourself into that position, just spread the knees further apart, bring the feet in a little bit if you need to. And like I said before, as long as the feet are outside the hips and the feet are turned out so that they're flat against the floor, you are going to be training your internal rotation, and we're going to be building that movement capacity. So when it comes to utilizing our support, I'm just going to show you from a side angle so you have a better vantage point. But we're going to want to place that support underneath our hips at whatever height and level that we are currently at that keeps us outside of our comfort zone, so that we're making adaptation, but not so far outside the comfort zone that we're putting ourselves at risk of injury or just not actually getting what we need out of the position, right? So for example, yoga block at the highest level, you're going to want to support it underneath your hips so that the block is absorbing some of the load of your body weight, taking it off the stretch and allowing you to effectively spend time in the position, getting the right stretch sensation and maximizing the contraction techniques if they're prescribed. And then over the course of time, whether it be over a program or even over a couple sets in a session, we can start to lower down that block and progress our range further so that we're working deeper into hip internal rotation. And like I said, over time we can just work our way down towards the floor, but again, keeping ourselves at a level that is outside our comfort zone, but not too far that it's going to be causing any issues. We don't want any sensation at the knee. We want that to be isolated nicely in the hips, and we want to be able to at least be able to tolerate the position so that we can actually train it effectively. Now, when it comes to contractions, there's two types of contractions that we can create from the stretch. There's an antagonist contraction, which is going to be contracting against the stretch. How we're going to want to do that is by thinking about driving our feet into the floor as if to come out of this rotation that we're in, and really just creating as much tension as we can by pressing our feet into the floor. And then we can also create an agonist contraction on the opposite side of the joint, which is going to be contracting with the stretch. And how we're going to want to do that is going to be thinking about lifting the feet off the floor as if to further our internal rotation. Now, if you're working at your end range effectively, this is going to be very challenging for you to even create the muscle activation, but even just applying the intention of creating that action is going to be recruiting motor units to the muscles and is going to be giving us the effect that we're looking for. And once you reach the higher levels, if you really want to take your internal rotation to the next level, this is only for the courageous, we can actually start to load the position with some additional weight, and that's just going to further the tissue adaptation and really help us completely remodel the tissues and take our internal rotation capacities to a whole new level.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and let me know. And if you're looking for more strength and flexibility content, subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date with my latest videos.